Welcome back to Too Much Future. This is episode 32. I'm Cameron.
I'm Michael.
On this show, we're playing the Fallout games. We played Fallout 1. Let's count them out. Okay, hold on.
Okay,
Fallout,
yeah.
Fallout 1.
Mm-hmm.
And, help me out here.
Fallout, I think it wasn't Fallout 4. We didn't play Fallout 4 then. Fallout 2.
Is it?
I think it was
76?
It's like Star Wars, actually. They started with Fallout 4 and then did 3 of them, and now they've gone back and now there are 9 of them. It's all over the place.
The remasters too.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's 96 of them, or 76. But yeah, so last couple episodes, we've been finishing up Fallout 3, and as I said a couple episodes ago, we were quote-unquote finishing, we got a lot of DLC to go, and on this episode, we're doing the first of those DLCs. They came out, I didn't do any fact-checking on this, but in my memory, because I played them all as they came out, one by one, and, I think they came out like 2 months in between them, 2 or 3 months in between them.
Mm-hmm.
Does that feel right to you?
I don't know, because I have not played any of the DLCs. I've played Fallout 3, but for this and New Vegas, I did not get any DLC. I had a kind of, I don't know. I have a very strange orientation toward the world, in that I feel like, well, I bought the game, I don't want more of it because I already finished it, right? Like, that's never, like, DLC in that sense has never appealed to me. And I guess I am kind of in the minority on that, like, because DLC has never held any sort of fascination for me.
I guess I'm kind of in the middle for some of that, right? Because I certainly like Fallout 3, and like I played all those DLC, but certain other games I didn't, and maybe I'm kind of reflecting on it now. I might actually be more in your court than in the DLC player's court, because for Mass Effect 2 and 3. They kind of came out, that I remember playing really heavily around the time of Fallout 3. Did not play any of the DLC for any of those games.
Nope.
I tend not to, despite being big into the Assassin's Creed games. Very rarely have I played the DLC for those games. So, and that's big stuff sometimes. So, maybe, I don't know. I don't really have that feeling, the one that you describe. But often I'm like, it's going to be a lot of work to like get back in this universe and like remember all the things that are going on, and I could just play a different game.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, for The Witcher, into it. So I don't know. Human beings, they're just paradoxes. Michael, you ever heard that before?
I don't know. I may have read it somewhere.
Is that me? Did I make that up?
Is that? Yeah, I think you made that up.
Wow.
Human beings are paradoxes. Cameron Kunzelman.
Mm-hmm. All things are known in heaven and earth, Horatio. I'm just spitting them like off the dome here.
All things are known in heaven and earth, Horatio. Cameron Kunzelman.
Yeah, it's my famous quote. But we're doing Operation Anchorage. Oof, hard one to get out for me. Which was the first one that came out in the kind of DLC-verse of Fallout 3. I remember really hotly anticipating it, kind of like keeping up with the news and when it was going to come out and all kinds of stuff like that. And then it did, and then I played it, and then kind of forgot about it for the next 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, I'm curious. I don't want to speak first because I'm curious about what you think of this since you've never done it before.
Yeah, so I said something similar to this, like on Discord or something to you, after I had finished it, which is like, I don't understand, like, on the one hand, having played Operation Anchorage, I can see kind of very clearly the thought process that informs it and what it is, right? I can see kind of the thing, like what it's going for, what its idea is, what is the pitch. And then the other, like, sort of the problem, though, is, like, I have no idea who wanted this or why they wanted to make it.
And by this, you don't mean, like, DLC in a broad sense. You mean this specific object.
Yes, right. Aside from, like, my other, like, I though I personally do not play the DLC game, I understand that like like there are people who like DLC, and I understand sort of I get why you would buy DLC, right? I want more of this world, or I want more of this type of gameplay, or whatever. But just like conceptually with Operation Anchorage, I know exactly sort of what was happening here, like what they were aiming for, but I don't know who wanted it and sort of what was. I mean, just to say like the obvious thing up front is that this is a 2000s style Call of Duty mod for Fallout 3. Like it is just very clearly like from beginning to end, the idea of this uh DLC is like, what if you played a Call of Duty game set in the Fallout universe? And I understand also that Call of Duty was very popular at this time. It still is very popular. But I again, but was someone like saying like, man, we should like I really wish I could play Fallout Call of Duty, right? Like, was anyone saying that? I don't remember ever hearing that. And it seems like maybe, from the dev angle, there might have been something fun there, because it's kind of like, well, what if we built, right? Like, what if we using our tool set, using the things we have, what if we built a Call of Duty style campaign? Um, and then they do. And that's kind of it, right? There's nothing more to it. Like, there's no twist, right? I have like you come in and you see the room and you see everything.
Yes. I know that this is a pond that we often travel back to. This is a beautiful, idyllic, ice-covered pond, carp
In Alaska.
in Alaska. Carp are visible beneath the silvery sheen of the thin ice layer at the top, and just daintily, you can scamper across it. If you dare. There's a little bit of thrill and a little bit of risk to it. But when the summer comes, after spring, of course, and before that, the winter, but when all of that happens, you can but dip your face and hands down into it to drink deep of the question, is this satire?
And see, that's the other thing, right? Is like, obviously I think kind of the first mode of response would be like, well, Fallout, which has this reputation for sending things up, for being comedic, for being parodic, or whatever. It's like, oh, well, they're satirizing Call of Duty. No, they don't. And I don't even mean that in like, oh, they've like failed in some sort of mission, because this doesn't feel like something that's trying to satirize Call of Duty. It literally feels like they tried to make a Call of Duty campaign with a Fallout toolkit.
Yeah, it's really weird in that regard. Playing it last night, I remembered playing it originally, and people at the time saying, I mean, golly, this is like before I was on social media, I think, even. But people at the time saying, like on forums, saying, oh, this is like a funny satire, ha 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 ha. And we, I think we have discovered how low the bar is for people to say that in a general sense, so maybe that's just true. But there's something going on here. Like, when you ask the question about what is the point of making this, I think the point of making this is to do some sort of like satire of the Call of Duty impetus, right? The desire to make Call of Duty games, because they're so deeply ideological projects. But I think you're right that I don't know, Fallout's tone can't overwhelm, the content itself, so it just ends up making the same thing. Because like and it also can't decide, maybe this is the additional part that complicates it. It can't decide as a DLC if it is making fun of video games or if it is just embracing their form.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's sort of what I was thinking of when I was trying to articulate the satire thing, is like, so there are silly things in this campaign, right? There are silly things in this DLC. There are odd things that happen, but by and large, everything feels like it's just played pretty straight. Like, the absurdity of it is not anything that is more or less absurd than anything you would have gotten out of a similar military shooter at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like it doesn't do a move where it like steps back and it's like, look how silly these military shooters are. It just sort of reproduces a military shooter and is like, if you want to think that this is funny and stupid, then be my guest. Otherwise, please enjoy shooting people.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you want to talk about a little bit of the blow by blow as we get there? Maybe we can get some. I don't know. I don't even know if there's nuance possible here, but we can at least talk about the shape of the thing, which is in and of itself weird.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Outcasts a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And here they are again.
If you need to be reminded, the Outcasts, the Brotherhood of Steel Outcasts, are the Brotherhood of Steel but meaner. They are like even more invested in like sort of keeping old world, like scouring and scrounging up old world technology and sort of keeping it for themselves. And they're extremely distrustful of outsiders, even more so than the regular Brotherhood of Steel. Which of course means that this mission begins with you receiving a radio signal from one of them asking anyone who can hear it to come help them. So you go do that, at least if you're me, right? I zip across the wasteland, and Eleanor finds the Brotherhood of Steel battalion. They've been pinned down by some super mutants, and this guy named Defender Moral is like, this is like, what are you doing here? Like, it's dangerous. Like, either help us mop up these super mutants and get back to our home base, or just like stay out of the way. So I decide, because I'm doing this DLC and doing this mission, I'm going to help them get to their home base. Unfortunately, they all die in this process. They are just obliterated by the super mutants while I'm like poking into corners looking for, I don't know, craftables or something I can collect.
Potent potables.
Yeah.
I think you've forgotten to mention their other significant and distinguishing thing from the Brotherhood of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
It's their wicked rad armor.
Oh, yeah. Again, looks exactly like regular Brotherhood of Steel stuff, except a little bit meaner. It's like a little bit rougher, like the darks are darker. They've got like red, they like do their logo in red or something, so it looks more hostile.
Yeah, it's like everything that I would have thought was cool when I was 11. Like, and that is not, if you think the Outcasts are cool, I'm not, saying that they're not cool. It's just like it's like red and black were the two coolest colors. Those are the coolest colors. What's cool? Having a good, a well-maintained suit of armor, or some like messed up armor? Messed up armor's cooler.
Mm-hmm.
What's better? Having a nice attitude or a bad attitude? Having a bad attitude is cooler. And that's kind of like their whole deal.
Yeah. My favorite thing is how all of the Brotherhood of Steel members that you meet during this DLC still have all kind of the basic like ambient dialogue from the main game. So they'll like, you're helping these people and they'll just be like, shouldn't you be in a cave somewhere?
Yes. I had that exact line show up in the funniest possible way at the end of this DLC, and I will put that right there so that we can return to it.
Okay. So yeah, I assume that Tonk didn't have too much of a difference in how he like got to the home base. No, I mean, maybe Moral survived. I don't know.
No. Well, I kind of got ahead of everybody, and I couldn't find a way up. There's like super mutants firing down on us, and I couldn't find my way up there. And so I eventually just kind of wandered around a little bit, and then everyone stopped firing. And so I just kind of kept going toward the map marker. So I have no idea what happened. I'm not even quite sure that I knew I was doing a protection mission, but I did get there. And it's pretty cool because it's like an elevator that you go down.
Yeah. It's like a big... It's like a big sort of like pit in the middle of like a bombed out building or something.
Mm-hmm. It's rad. And then you meet, let's see if I wrote this dude's name down. Yeah, Protector McGraw.
Well, the first person you meet is going to be a minor character who I think has some importance. It's a guy named Defender Sibley, who has a very strange voice. He's like, what are you doing here? He kind of sounds like the person was almost under the impression that they were doing a ghoul. But yeah, so then he's like, what are you doing here? And then he'll take you to see Protector McGraw, which I don't know how that worked out for you, but I had a Black Widow option where I could just walk in. He could be sort of angry with me. And then I was like, hey, sweetheart, like, who's in charge here? And then he immediately said, oh, I guess I'll take you to Protector McGraw.
No, he was just like, I'll take you to McGraw. I was like, okay, cool. And then he did. He took me to McGraw the Crime Dog. I also talked to someone named... what's her name? This Scribe Olin, who was there. And she was real mean to me. And then I used my... was it Lady Killer? Is the other version of Black Widow? Mm-hmm. And I used Lady Killer, and I was like, why are you so mean to me? And she said, you know what? I'm so sorry about that. I'm so sorry I was mean to you. It's really weird. It felt very much against, like, the intent of that perk.
Yeah.
Which, but it was really just like, why are you mean to me? Like, what did I do? Why are you such a jerk? She's like, we can be pretty gruff down here. I was like, all right.
Yeah. So, like, you get taken... Sibley takes you to McGraw, who it turns out this sort of detachment of the Outcasts is here in this like little bunker. It's an old world army bunker that has like an armory in it, and they very much want to get into that armory and get the weapons. Only the door is like protected, right? You have to pass through a simulation that is also in this bunker. And they can't get into the simulation. It's like a training like an old world army training simulation. They can't get into the simulation to complete it because they don't have computers or the right type of computer. I mean, the point here is they need your Pip-Boy. For some reason, your Pip-Boy is the only thing that will work here. Mm-hmm. There's a terminal in here that you can hack. Did you do that?
I did, because it was like the first terminal in human history that I could hack, and so I felt, I felt like I couldn't just leave that on the table.
I realized as I was doing this that we actually haven't talked about hacking on the show for this game thus far, and I just want to bring it up real quick to say that like hacking here is bizarre and makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, you become that thing.
you become that thing.
Mm-hmm. Become that thing. Hacking. Hacking.
My favorite thing is how it's like a whole bunch of like random symbols, and then you have to like choose passwords, and some of them are right or some of them wrong, and you kind of like do this weird Wheel of Fortune thing as you try to match up like what letters are being counted and which ones aren't. But if you go through all of the symbols, you can find like special clusters of them that will do things like, you find one and it eliminates a dud password, right? It takes one of the bad passwords out, so you don't have to worry about that. It drives me up the wall, though, because almost all the time, the first one I find is one that replenishes my hacking allowance, because you only can hack so many times. But if it's the first one you find, then you haven't used up any of your allowances. And also, they're not consistent. Or rather, like, I think they are consistent, but they're hard to memorize because it's literally like an angle bracket and a period and like an open parentheses. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. But anyway, yeah, you can hack this terminal. It's very easy. And you get 2 little bits of information about the development of this military simulation. What did you think of that?
So it's pretty interesting. So correct me if any of this is wrong, but the information that we get, both, well, you can get this in some conversations, you can get it in this terminal, but composite wise, the simulation was made in order to prepare people for going into the military conflict with China,
mm-hmm.
but also kind of to celebrate the liberation of Anchorage, Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a both and kind of deal.
Yes.
It was overseen by a guy named General Chase,
mm-hmm.
who is a character. He's like your commanding officer in the simulation.
Yes.
But who, after that conflict, kind of came back to not civilian life, I guess, but this like weird pseudo-contractor life.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not quite good at this.
Mm-hmm.
...
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of other things. This guy is someone who gets Chase. His name is Constantine Chase. He was mentioned back in whatever the heck the vault was that we rescued Papa Neeson from.
Oh, really?
Yes, if you get into that terminal in Tranquility Lane, like the debug terminal or whatever the heck they call it, you find out that he was working with Braun, Stanislaw Braun, the overseer of that vault, and then the murderer in charge of the simulation. They were working on this project together, right? Like this was like there was a connection there, and it's Chase who I think gives Braun the code or like the ability to do that failsafe in Tranquility Lane where you can spawn in a bunch of Chinese soldiers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then the other thing that I got at least from this terminal is that, and this is very notable to me because the notes here are not written by Chase himself. They're written by like someone who's working on the simulation, and he's being directed to do this or that thing by Chase. And the dev is like exasperated and like, I know, like he's obsessing over all of these details, like how his face looks in the simulation and stuff. But then also like, I think he's adding stuff in that didn't happen. I can't like, I know some of the things didn't go down this way, which primes me at least for some. It gives me some expectations for what may or may not happen in the simulation. Namely, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe the simulation's going to get kind of wacky. And I want to revisit that at the end and think about wackiness or like potential wackiness in this thing. But yeah, that's kind of the basic situation. Like, you know, Chase is like, gosh, I really don't want to pull in an outsider, but we need you because we need that computer. Did you find anything else here?
Yeah, the only other thing that I thought was interesting is that they talk about how the West Tech facility has gone offline by the time that they're finishing this simulation.
Oh, that's right. Which would have
Yeah.
been the war itself, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's why I was a little bit confused about, and I didn't really know one way or the other. One thing it could imply to me, like one way of reading this, is exactly what you just said, which is that, you know, the war has started, West Tech is offline, and now, you know, 30 minutes later, the bombs drop everywhere. Okay, that's one way of doing it. The other way that you could potentially read it is that we know the West Tech facility, you know, had connections to the Enclave or like the pre-Enclave, right? And so my thought maybe is that the West Tech facility, when it's making FEV and developing all this kind of stuff, it removed itself from the networks basically, in order to preempt or stop communication or something like that. So I don't really know, because the concern, it shows up because it says something to the effect of, well, you know, the military is just eating up every private contractor that exists. And, you know, we don't want to be eaten up completely, which implies to me that like West Tech going offline is really the government stepping in and being like, hey, we know what's about to happen, and we are operating this facility now. But, you know, it's one or two sentences or something like that, but it was really a lot for me to be like, they were thinking about how to kind of knit this into the world, and the way that they chose to do it's pretty interesting.
I opened up a little locked door on the other side of the hallway here. Did you do that?
I did not.
Well, if you do that, you go in and it's what looks like a medical room with a corpse on the floor. And that corpse belongs to none other than Gary, 23.
They got a Gary in there?
They have a Gary in there. Last episode, we mentioned that, you know, there was content in this game that was totally optional that we didn't do, and we mentioned specifically as an example the Gary Vault, the vault that was given a cloning device and now is populated entirely by clones of a man named Gary. And he just shows up here, and he's dead on the floor and is missing an arm.
Oh, because Gary's got a Pip Boy.
Yep, because yeah. So this is something, if you go back to talk to Olin, who's the woman who's in the simulation room, she mentioned I was having a conversation with her, you know, going through all of the dialogue options in my Eleanor fashion. And I can't remember exactly what it was I said to her, but it was something like, you know, do I really have to do this? And she was like, well, unless you want us to hack your arm off. Which is confusing because, as you say, it seems like they've hacked off Gary 23's arm to use his Pip-Boy, but for some reason, even having a Pip-Boy did not work. So I'm not saying that like there's necessarily some sort of lore justification here. I'm thinking that this is kind of like we wanted to have a Gary Easter egg maybe, and so they did that. Although I did, I this will recur maybe a couple times in this episode. I was looking around on the fan wikis, reading about this DLC, basically looking to see if there was some stuff that I missed or whatever. Again, because this is all new to me. And it made some very like bold and striking claims about like how did Gary get into the vault. Well, it turns out he was captured. Like the Brotherhood went into vault, whatever, like the Gary vault. They did a recon mission there, and they captured Gary 23, and they brought him back, and then they amputated his arm to get his Pip-Boy, but then I guess maybe the Pip-Boy failed because its user was dead. I was wondering, like, where are they getting all this? And it turns out it's from the official strategy guide.
What?
Yeah.
There's additional Gary information in there?
Yeah. Like, there's, like, a Game of the Year strategy guide that has, like, segments for all of the DLC. And so, like, that becomes canon, I guess.
Oh, no. Am I going to... Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see how canonical guides become. I might have to grab a guide or two, I guess.
One other thing that I saw here, I had two of the Outcasts were having kind of an argument out in the hallway. Did you see that?
No. I saw them have an argument afterward, but not at the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it was for me. It was at the beginning, and they were talking about it. I didn't catch the beginning of it because I was talking to Olin, and then I put on my little neuro suit and did some jumping around because it looked very funny wearing Abraham Lincoln's hat. This is in my footage, so if it's interesting to anyone, but there are two like guards or soldiers or whatever, and I didn't catch the beginning, but they're arguing over like they are clearly losing faith in McGraw's ability to lead this mission. And like one of them one of them says he maybe wants to desert or something, and the other accuses him of like treason or whatever, insubordination, whatever. And then they sort of like get into almost a screaming match, and then they immediately like calm down and they're like, never mind, like let's just get back to work.
Weird.
Yeah, so, but that will come back later. But then, I went over and, like our good friend Shinji Anime, I got in the pod.
You got in the robot?
Yeah.
I also got in the robot, and I saw my character for the first time in a long time. I was like, whoa, you got mutton chops on, bud.
Forgot about those.
I also took his hat off because it felt weird to be wearing that neuro suit and a hat.
I kept the Abraham Lincoln hat on, but what was very mysterious is that when the simulation ends and Eleanor gets out of the pod, she's no longer wearing it. Ooh-wee-oo.
Michael keeps that Abraham Lincoln hat on.
And then we're in Anchorage.
Yeah, so we go into that, and it fades to white, and like beeps us back together. It's like, oh, golly. Did you write this guy's name down, by the way?
Yeah, his name is Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery.
Benjamin Montgomery. So Sergeant Benjamin Montgomery is like, wow, dang, we almost fell off these cliffs. I'm so glad that our parachutes caught at the last minute. And then and then basically says, well, we're going to have to shoot our way through a lot of Chinese soldiers. Good luck with that.
He's like, like, I'll leave it up to you whether we go in guns blazing or if we take the stealth approach. But we'll still have to meet up at the rendezvous point.
Yeah, I have no idea how you could take the stealth approach here. It didn't work anytime I tried it. But the important thing, I think, is that, very like you were saying, right, it's very much this like Call of Duty like pseudo player option of like, there's one hallway you're going to go down. Like there's really one golden path here. There's not a lot of optional stuff. And you have a little bit of leeway in how you choose to take it, but and he gives you like a little like Deus Ex style silenced 10mm gun.
Mm-hmm.
But Tonk doesn't use guns. So Tonk used a combat knife and just like Michael Myers through this entire DLC. Because there's no good melee weapon that you can have in the whole thing other than the combat knife. And so
you can get a power fist later on.
But that's an unarmed weapon.
Oh.
Yeah. At least in previous games. Maybe I misread it. But yeah, not for me. And so I still just use my and frightened everyone away by doing it. But yeah, you just do this. I mean, you progress linearly through the level, killing the enemies that appear in front of you. There are health pickups that glow red.
Mm-hmm. No stim packs. Like, that is an important thing. Like, stim packs are not here. You can't use them. Also, all of your character's defining features are now gone because you are forced to wear, like, the full-body soldier armor. Which, again, like, there is a critique there to be unpacked over, like, what exactly this simulation is doing and how it's producing certain subjects, right? And so on and so forth. The game doesn't really go that far. It just kind of puts some bricks down.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conceptual, the developer intent side of this is quite interesting, and I think you can read the intent pretty clearly here, which is like, when you make a military simulation, it comes with a bunch of ideas already in it, and then you have to live out those ideas. And there's this kind of thing going on, which I think is pretty cool, where the Bethesda is saying, this kind of military simulation would look a lot like the games that are not cool and open and experimental like our games. It would look kind of like a boring game, like those other games we compete against. Wink, 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 nudge, 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 poke, poke, poke. But the problem with that is that it's bad. Like, it's not exciting or fun to play through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like, you just wander around, like, Montgomery tells you at some point, that there are like 3 guns that you're trying to take out. And he says a bunch of stuff that I actually mostly missed. Like, this is another kind of like weird thing about this mission, is that I think you get a lot of context for things that are happening through him, but he is often talking like from far enough away that you can't hear him, or he's like talking and there's like gunfire happening so you can't hear him. So eventually I had to go into the menu and turn on subtitles just because I was like, what? Why does he keep saying stuff? I can't hear him. I'm not over there.
I think I have subtitles on all the time, so I know exactly what he's saying.
Oh, okay. Did he explain anything about the blast charges?
I mean, he told me I had them.
Oh, okay.
No, he just basically says, hey, be on the lookout for these guns. And so I actually spent quite a long time on the lookout for these guns. Like, on this path, like seeing, am I going to miss them, whatever. And then they're all just stacked against one another at the end.
Yeah.
Which is, helpful at the end. I'm glad I didn't miss anything. I really like the animations of him.
What do you mean? Like, do you mean that part where you like go into the room and he like crawls down out of the ventwork? Like the alien from Alien Isolation?
Yes, he does do that.
It looks exactly like it. Like, I turned the corner and it's like scripted so he starts coming down out of the vent at about that same moment. And it was like, holy crap. Because it gave me straight up Alien Isolation flashbacks.
But... you blow up those charges, or you blow up these guns, you're just shooting dudes along the way, and like you were saying, right, like, there might be more of a parody vibe, or a satire vibe, or a commentary vibe, if you were doing literally anything else.
Yeah, I mean, there are literally glowing suitcases of intel that you can pick up.
Yeah, which are the like secret items, or not secret items, but collectible items for the Call of Duty games, right? I think it's intel in those as well. One of the other things about it too they're the holotapes. Did you listen to any of those?
I found 2 of them and listened to them, and those are also weird.
They're extremely weird. They're like, I can't tell if they are meant to be. They are weird. They're weird, as you're saying, and they're weird because on one hand, they are the most stereotypical like war story, war trauma narratives that you could like drum up from, the war films of the 1950s.
Right.
Right.
It's everyone, because of the way the Fallout universe works, right? It is like the 1950s, but in the far future. So, the first holotape that I found was something like, Molly, I don't know if you'll ever hear this or if I'll, if I'll survive, but I needed to tell you that everything is true. We got here and the Chinese had invaded Anchorage, and everyone has kind of like that 1950s war movie affect. It's very, very strange.
Yeah. So while I was listening to them, I was unclear on, is this just bad stereotypical writing? Or is this some sort of commentary on that genre and the kind of like overly melodramatic war story where, exactly as you're saying, I've been shot and I'm hiding here and I don't know if you'll ever hear this. Like that whole thing. Is that a commentary on like the triteness of the genre? So basically I'm wondering, is this trite or is it commenting on triteness? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter one way or the other, but I guess I have different feelings based on what they were attempting to do in this scenario. But there's no way of knowing. This is a failure of close reading because it's impossible to determine one way or the other.
Right. Well, it's sort of touching on stuff that I've said before, right? There's all this stuff that could be read that way, but there is no kind of framing or a push from the game itself in kind of a larger sense to get you to activate those readings unless you are inclined to look for them.
Yeah. Other than the very end of the DLC, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but after you complete this mission, you blow up these guns, you end up going to like this forward operating base, and the general explains to you that there is a big pulse field that basically if the troops enter it, it will obliterate them. And so you have to go to like a listening station and an encampment with some tanks with a bunch of Shagohods on it. And you gotta like deal with those first. And then you can go deal with like the big real thing in the middle, which is this, Chinese defended position where the general is and all this.
Yeah,
stuff.
the Chinese are occupying a refinery, and that is your mission is to take the refinery back.
Yeah, and you can just do that. Like, these things are... there's a cool mechanic here, actually, which is the, like, squad building mechanic. Did you play with that very much?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's part of the thing is, like, you come out of... Like, you teleport, actually, back to base. And then you get promoted by Chase. And that means you're, like, now a squad leader. You're the leader of a strike team. And you get, like, little chits. And you can requisition, like, soldiers and equipment. And that's, like, a grenadier and a sniper or a foot soldier or a Mr. Gutsy, right? The various types of robots. And it's an interesting little change up for how the game normally works.
Yeah, I had a quite good time with it. I enjoyed like building my team. I had a Mr. Gutsy and grenadier and an infantryman, and we just like bebopped all around and did stuff. And you can call in reinforcements, but really you're just going to locations and shooting people along the way and completing the mission. They're not particularly interesting, other than the tanks, which are Shagohods.
Well, I want to say. The interest to just go back actually and talk about the more boring one, the listening post. I got stuck here.
I also almost got stuck here, and the game just kind of fixed itself, thankfully.
Oh, how did it fix itself?
So for you, did you get stuck? Let me try to mind read here. Vulcan mind meld. Is it because you forgot to talk to him in the middle, and so he didn't know that he was supposed to be doing the end of the mission?
No.
Okay.
So
that's what
when you go through. I went through the listening post, right? I cleared this place out, and an important thing that I noticed but misread is that there are not just soldiers in the listening post, and also, I guess for the record, there are two types of Chinese soldiers. Basically, there's like the normal like person with a gun, and some of them have like flamethrowers and things, but then there are also like stealth commandos, right? What they call the dragoons, and these are people. They are the cyber ninjas from Metal Gear Solid. Speaking of Shagohods, and they like can turn invisible and stuff. So I go through the listening post, And there's another type of person here, the technician. They are non-hostile. They don't have weapons, and they will not hurt you. They just like hide when you come into the room and the bullets start flying. So I didn't do anything with them. And I finished out the map, and then nothing happened. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I, wandered around a whole bunch. Not like there didn't seem to be any way forward. Like I was hitting the marker, but nothing was triggering. And I had to look it up. And you have to kill the technicians for the mission to end, which is what we call procedural rhetoric. Like the military simulation itself, right, will not progress until you have killed even the non-hostile enemy, right?
Even the civilians. I mean, right. The civilian operators.
Yes. So that was a thing. And again, right, like I made a reading of that just now, but the game itself doesn't do much to point that out to the player, to be like, oh, how weird and messed up it is. Anyway, Shagohods. What do you think about these Shagohods?
They're cool.
Yeah, they are. They were like mining tanks. They're called chimeras. They are like a certain type of mining machinery that has been modified by the Chinese army into tanks. And they have like big drill. They look actually a little bit like the thing that Shredder rides around in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoons. Or like Krang. I think it's Krang's little like drilling thing.
Sound out in the comments if it's Shredder or Krang's drilling thing.
Yeah. But you blow them up. And this is so you will notice nothing in the story that we're relating thus far seems very wacky or out of place. And just to be upfront about what I said earlier with the logs in the terminal saying like, oh, there's stuff happening here that I absolutely know didn't happen in the way that it was supposed to, right? Chase is losing it. He's going mad. When you look this stuff up on the wiki, the Shagohods, the chimeras, are one of the things that fans are supposing was something that Chase invented. The reason being, they're weird. I don't find that compelling because there are going to be a couple of weirder things that are going to happen, but nothing that happens in this setting is weird enough to strain my to strain credibility, right? Or credulity, I should say. Because like, why wouldn't the Fallout universe have mining equipment that has been refitted into tanks? Right? Why wouldn't they? They have power armor, right? Like, how is one thing more absurd than the other? But
that happens in the real world all the time. People retrofit weird stuff into war machinery constantly.
Yeah. Actually, I'll just go ahead and say the other things that are being supposed as elaborations on Chase's part. One, if you look up into the skybox during these levels, you will see vertibirds flying around. Did you know that according to actual Fallout canon, vertibirds were only in the prototype stage at this point and were not perfected until shortly before the flame deluge, right? Once you've cleared out both the listening post and the Chimera Depot, and then you go and you have to take down the pulse field. You shoot some people and then you go into a little bunker and you push a button and then the field shuts down. A whole bunch of soldiers run across this big snowy field toward the refinery. Actually, the refinery looks really cool. This is one of the things that is clear is that like the environmental artists got to do some things here that they weren't able to do in the main campaign, because we have big open spaces that aren't dominated by rubble, and we've got like a cool blue skybox, and also because it's snowy and windy and we're up on cliffs, previews of Skyrim assets.
Yeah, there are vistas in this DLC, which is not something you can say about any of the rest of this game.
Yeah. But then as the American soldiers are running up to the refinery, they blow open like the first set of doors or something, and they do that with the little boy, the little like nuke rocket launcher that you can get in the main game. And again, if you pay close attention to Fallout canon, the little boy was not actually created until 8 months after Operation Anchorage. So this was probably another elaboration on Chase's part. Yeah.
Okay. I will accept this. I guess.
Right, like the point that I want to make, right, is that if you're going to do like if you're going to hint that like the guy is getting weird with the simulation, it has to be sort of recognizably weird compared to the actual like world that I guess that the player can think exists outside of the simulation. It can't be stuff like this gun that shows up was actually invented 8 months later. Ding, CinemaSin.
Yeah, put a clown in it or something, you know?
Right.
Put a werewolf in it.
Like, and that was the other thing is like because so much of it was centered around Chase himself, I expected his character to be sort of like clearly like puffed up and over the top, and like he is like a puffed up character and probably over the top, but not any more than any sort of like generic like character in a Call of Duty game, right? Like this is the only access I have to Constantine Chase, so.
Yeah, exactly. There's no comparative, and also like the raiders are weird, scientists are weird. Like everyone in Fallout 3 is a little bit, 10% more than they should be, and
Right.
so he's not substantially different than General Pillars of Autumn, even in that kind of register. The thing that is most compelling or parodic or something like that, or compelling about being parodic, is the way that he talks to your character, which is like everyone's constantly pumping you up and being like, you're powerful, you're cool, you're gonna do it, you're rad, you're gonna make it happen. And obviously, like, read in context, the idea here is that this is turning you into like someone who's excited to go and fight against the Chinese, right? So like a pure propaganda machine. And I think we could easily read the criticism there that like all of these Call of Duty games are just pure propaganda machines, which sure.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, again, like you're saying, it's not much more than any other like actual piece of propaganda, especially since so much of what we see in Fallout 3 is propaganda from different factions, right? So it's like not that strange. It doesn't hit a level of extremity for me to be like, this is some real stuff they're doing. Ha ha ha. They're really selling me on it. And I shouldn't feel like I'm being, I should feel real strong and powerful. But this whole time I'm like, yeah, I just watched my dad die so that I could become the one true hero of the wasteland when I restored all of the water filtration to the capital waste. And it's like, this dude talking about how powerful I am as like a gunman is not even rating on that scale of like individual heroism. So in some ways, Bethesda can't overcome the kind of hero narrative that they already do, even though they clearly think that they can. Like it feels so, I don't know, again, reading some intent here, but it just feels like that's the argument being made, and it's not a compelling one.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing. The Chinese have spider robots that are basically like walking landmines, and they just like run up to you and explode. At one point you can hack a Chinese terminal, and like you have some sort of weird auto translation thing, so you get like sort of half garbled, half translated notes, and it mentions something bizarre about like spider drones or something, and you're like, oh, what the heck is that? And then you go like a little bit further down the map, and then it's just a little landmine with legs, and it runs up to you and explodes.
Yeah, they're cool. My team was like constantly shooting the ground. I couldn't figure out why, but that was why.
Yeah, so I mean, is there anything else sort of we wanted to cover in these missions? Because otherwise we're at the end of this part of the DLC.
Yeah, you get through that refinery and you open that door, and right in front of you, wouldn't you know it, there's a Chinese general. And this is like the most parodic feeling part of the whole thing.
Yes.
You're like, haha, like obviously, this grunch here is going to be fighting the most powerful member of the Chinese military, and like pure ideology there. He's got a sword, and I just kept throwing landmines at his feet, and I eventually blew him up.
Yeah, his name is General Jingwei. And the first, like, when you see him, you like bust open the doors of the refinery and all the soldiers are pouring in around you, and you see him directly in front of you, and the first thing you see him do is like calmly execute an American soldier with his sword, like he has a saber.
Mm-hmm.
And then he, like, catches, he does the thing that people in this world can do, which is like catch your attention and make you focus on them entirely through dialogue box. And he yells at you in Chinese, but also like it shows up at the bottom in English so you can read it. And he's like, like, I don't know, like, we're gonna fight you, like you will be destroyed. And then I had a speech possibility where I could tell him, you have already lost, don't throw away your dignity. It was 100% pass. I chose it. And he was like, you will never take me prisoner. And then he takes his sword and he runs himself through.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yep.
The power of speech.
Mm-hmm. And then Chase shows up and he's like, good work, soldier.
And then it just disintegrates.
Yep. And then you get tossed out of the simulation. That's it.
Well, what the thing that I thought was interesting about the whole thing was right here at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You come out of the simulation and you open up this armory that they're trying to open up.
Mm-hmm.
Did we say that at the beginning, that that's the whole reason? Yes, we did.
Yeah. They need to get into the armory, but the armory won't open unless you've completed the simulation.
Yeah, that's a weird rule, but okay.
Uh-huh.
So you did it. McGruff the crime dog is like, heck yeah, you did it. Thanks. Go get whatever you want, Buster.
Uh-huh.
And so I roll in there and I start picking some stuff up. I get like the armor, the winterized armor, and I get the General Jingwei's sword. That's in there.
So weirdly enough, right? Like, that's not a thing that appears to have been exaggerated, that he has a sword and that it is electrified. It's like an Oblivion item.
Yeah, it's cool. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
And but here is the interesting thing. I walk out and it's the guy who led me in here. What was his name?
Sibley?
Yes. Sibley is talking to McGruff the crime dog, and he says, you're just letting this wastelander get whatever they want? And McGruff the crime dog is like, yeah, I mean, they earned it. And Sibley says, not on my watch. You've betrayed us for the last time. And so they just start fighting, shooting each other. And so I'm like swinging my new sword around, hitting people, boom, 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 bang, 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 doing all the business. Everyone except for Scribe Olin is dead.
Same.
Okay. But she's alive.
Uh-huh.
She survived. And she looks at me and says, shouldn't you be huddled in a cave or something?
After watching her entire team die at each other's hands.
And I saved her life.
Yeah.
She didn't care for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I same thing. The exact same thing happened. Everyone died, and I was, I pulled out Lincoln's repeater and was shooting folks, and then she survived. And I went over and I was like, "Can you repair my equipment?" And she was like, "Yeah, sure thing." And that's it.
Well, 1 to 5 stars. What's this thing for you? This DLC?
I would say maybe 2 stars, 2.5 stars. In the sense that it is interesting to see how they recreate the Call of Duty experience within Fallout, right? Within kind of this game engine. And it does do a pretty good job of kind of like shaking things up, right? Compared to what we've been doing over the past however many hours. It's like, yeah, this is something different. That's interesting. But beyond that, I was looking at reviews of this prior to recording, and a lot of them were just like, is this worth $10? Like, that was a huge concern at the time, back in 2009 when this came out. Is this going to be worth $10? I don't know if it's worth $10, especially not now. But I don't know. I'm glad that it came packaged in with my Fallout 3 Game of the Year edition, so I can play it, I guess, and get the full Fallout 3 Game of the Year experience.
Yeah, I remember people at the time being a little bit pissed off that they'd done that. And we talked about DLC over the past couple episodes and the kind of opinions around it. But it's going to be interesting. We'll kind of do a ranking at the end of what we think the best DLC are. But this one is not my least favorite. I can say that.
Mm-hmm.
Easy, no question.
All
Michael, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on twitter.com @WarrenIsDead. What about you, Cameron?
You can go to rangetouch.com to find out all the other stuff that we're up to. You can go to @rangetouch on Twitter to see all of our ideas and thoughts and feelings that we have. You can tell Michael to get into the pod. You can learn about #VaultJaunt. You can go over to patreon.com to support the show and just to learn all the other stuff that we do. If you were listening to this on YouTube and you'd like to have a podcast feed where you just listen to it at your leisure, if you support us at $3 a month or more, you can get access to that little feed. Just a little convenience for you, because every dollar helps. We're trying to get to 1,025 different supporters over on Patreon. Currently, as of this recording, we're about 300 short of that, somewhere in that range. As little as $1 a month helps. So if you enjoy the show and you think that you can spare $1 or $3 or $5 a month, that's a cup of coffee a month, go ahead and do that. The link is down in the description down below.
Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Do it, soldier.
Do it.
That's how it works.
Is that your famous quote?
Yeah, Michael Lutz. Do it, soldier.
Do it, soldier. Okay, cool. Well, then we will be back in 2 weeks with... we haven't decided what the next DLC we're doing is.
In release order, I believe the next one is The Pit.
I think so, too. So we'll be doing The Pit next time.
So next time, folks, remember, war never changes, but Fallout sure does.
Everything changes.